Hello there, you're now with me, Cheryl Chaminato, for TVS News at 5. Let's begin with the headlines. Chief Minister Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Haji Abdul Rahman Zohari Tunopeng received a courtesy call at his office in Wisma Bapa, Malaysia from the National Task Force Delegation or NTF, led by Laksamana Madya Dato' Aris Adi Tan bin Abdullah. Issues discussed were on of safety and security in Sarawak.
These include the implementation of Ops Benteng statewide. At the same time, former Brigade Commander of the 3rd Infantry Malaysia, Brigadier General Dato' Azhar Ahmad, was also present in the appreciation handover ceremony at the event today. Also present were Safety Director of the National Security Council NSC Sarawak, Sofian Iswandi Ismail, NTF Head of Operations Staff Dato' Muhammad Yusuf Muhammad Dan, Assistant Head of Staff Brigadier General Zaidi Shkaf Jamaluddin.
On the other hand, the decision of the appeal to permit lion dance performances to be held during the Chinese New Year celebration depends solely on the Sarawak Disaster Management Committee or SCMC. Deputy Chief Minister Dato' Sri Dr. Sim Kui Hian said that SCMC has received the letter of appeal and the SOP for lion dances were to be reviewed.
Dr. Ahmad Douglas has received the letter of appeals, and then the SDMC will sit down and look at it. And also, you see, even the federal SOP just coming out. Hopefully, the worst is over, and we are living into the endemic, living with the virus into the endemic. But because the virus keeps on changing, there's so much unknown, and everybody tahan a little bit lah, because last year 4,000 lives we lost, and then.
Earlier, the Chinese New Year guidelines provided by the Unit for Other Religions, UNIFOR, were approved by SDMC, which banned lion dance performances in the effort to control the COVID-19 transmission and the new variants. At the same time, Dr. Sim, who is also the Sarawak United People's Party SUPP president, hopes that this year's Chinese New Year can be celebrated moderately and that all individuals continue to be vigilant so that Sarawak can be free from the threat of the virus.
And you can see that we are down to single digit only for a few days, and then we are back down to double digits. And that's why I wish everybody first vaccinated, everybody really follow SOP, and because we want everybody to be safe.
He said this when met by reporters after officiating the groundbreaking ceremony of SJKC Kai Nang on Thursday.
Overage, work commitments, marriages and offers to further their tertiary education were among the reasons cited for the 88 state athletes' withdrawal from this year's Malaysia Games in Kuala Lumpur. Johor was to host the Malaysia Games in 2020 but was postponed twice due to the pandemic.
However, the SUKMA Supreme Council has agreed to postpone the Johor SUKMA to 2024. State Youth, Sports and Entrepreneur Development Minister Dato' Sri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah said most number of withdrawal was for hockey, with 13 athletes opting out, followed by e-sport 12 athletes, cycling 10 and canoeing 9. He also added that of the total of 30 events that Sarawak athletes will be competing in at the Games, only judo, artistic gymnastics, swimming and golf did not have any athletes pulling out. Last October, Youth and Sports Minister Dato' Sri Ahmad Faizal Azumu said the SUKMA Supreme Council agreed to postpone the Johor SUKMA to 2024. It also agreed to let the National Sports Council, NSC, organise the 2020 SUKMA and 2020 Para SUKMA in Kuala Lumpur this year.
And now on to the next update. The Education Ministry is investigating into a claim which went viral on social media of only white rice with gravy served for students under the Supplementary Food Programme, RMT.
Senior Education Minister Dato' Dr. Radzi Jidin said the ministry will not compromise in matters involving the welfare of students. He had also instructed that the schools involved be identified. Yesterday, the issue went viral on social media of a Facebook posting with a picture on a claim that only white rice and gravy were served for students under the RMT program, causing an uproar questioning whether the allocation was too little that the canteen operator had to provide such food to school children.
This is our world today. Complicated ideas, news saturation, information overload. We'll delve into the issues, break down the stories to see what matters and why it matters.
Your hands are not on the wheel and hasn't used anything. Okay, it's moving by itself. Wow. I just
don't get fat.
Dalam episod akan datang, Empresses in the Palace.
手工来作践本宫。额娘抱你去玩好不好？
我不要，我不要。
镯子丢了，情丢不得。碎轩里晾好了皇上爱喝的茶，皇上去喝吗？
你都这么说了，这能不去吗？
Jangan lupa Empresses in the Palace. Isnin hingga Khamis, 9:30 malam. Di TVS saluran 122 Astro dan My TV.
熹妃，你还是好好的安胎吧。臣妾恭送皇后娘娘。
Welcome back. Now, following the issue of the flood disaster, in a bid to improve disaster management, relevant agencies are instructed to expedite the second phase development of the flood forecast and warning system. This was to enable a more accurate early flood forecast and warnings to be issued.
As a long-term measure, Prime Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said, disaster risk reduction (DRR) aspects should be improved using the whole of society approach, which should also be adopted in all aspects of development, economy, education and health. He said this was because disaster management was a matter that involves all quarters, with communication, education and public awareness being the key elements that need to be implemented continuously to create a culture of shared responsibility, including for the DRR. Apart from that, he said local authorities should always play their roles, such as ensuring that all monsoon drains in the urban and suburban areas are in good condition and not clogged so as to avoid flash floods. The Prime Minister said he had also instructed NADMA to expedite the formulation of the Disaster Management Act.
Now over 300 billion ringgit is needed for the proposed long-term solutions to flood problems nationwide. This will be implemented in phases for 50 years.
Environment and Water Minister Dato Sri Tuan Ibrahim Tuan Maan said this included projects to develop water infrastructures such as flood mitigation systems, constructions of embankments, as well as prevention of coastal erosion. Commenting further, he said focus will be given to some key approaches, such as strengthening the governance of climate change adaptation of the water sector, through the formulation of the Water Sector Adaptation Act by taking into account the need to increase the level of protections of the country's drainage and coastal infrastructures. Under this act, the ministry would propose setting up a special fund or trust fund to increase the adaptive capacity of the water sector and coastal areas through the development and maintenance of infrastructures that take into account the climate change factors.
Membangunkan struktur dan reka bentuk infrastruktur tebatan banjir berkonsepkan make room for water seperti menaik taraf sistem pengurusan banjir, pantai, sungai-sungai utama serta menaik taraf benteng atau ban pantai, sungai dan parit dengan meningkatkan tahap perlindungan kala purata ulangan atau ARI, reka bentuk infrastruktur saliran dan pantai daripada 100 tahun ARI kepada 200 tahun ARI.
Adding further, he said other measures included the development of a national adaptation center to coordinate policies and implementations of climate change adaptation, integrations of disaster risk and prevention of loss and damage due to the effects of climate change involving vulnerable sectors.
Di samping itu, KASA juga mengambil sikap terbuka untuk mempelajari pengalaman-pengalaman negara-negara lain dalam pengurusan banjir. Dalam hal ini, saya ingin maklumkan pada Dewan Yang Mulia ini bahawa kerajaan Belanda telah pun menawarkan bantuan kepada Malaysia melalui kedutaan Belanda di Kuala Lumpur. Antaranya bantuan yang ditawarkan ialah penghantaran pasukan Dutch Risk Reduction Team atau DRR ke Malaysia bagi menilai impak fenomena banjir dan cadangan penyelesaian yang bersesuaian.
He believes that through the proposed solution, the impact of the flood phenomenon in terms of property, destruction or loss of lives can be minimized.
As the northeast monsoon hit the country since December 2021, it had affected Malaysia's economic sector production value. The Finance Ministry has estimated that the said value had been reduced by between 4 billion ringgit and 8 billion ringgit.
However, the Ministry Minister Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz said the country's gross domestic product GDP growth forecast remained between 3% and 4% for the whole of 2021. Tengku Zafrul said the momentum of the recovery is expected to continue throughout the year. It is expected to grow between 5.5% and 6.5%, which he said in line with the projections of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank.
The government has so far channeled over 125 million ringgit to the states affected by the floods in a bid to coordinate the disbursement of the compassionate cash aid and BWI death assistance aid to heads of households.
Finance Minister Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said since December 27th until now, 75,000 KIR had received BWI payments of 1,000 ringgit with disbursements totaling 75,000 ringgit. In addition, 45,000 households affected by the floods had also benefited from electricity bill exemption for the month of December 2021.
Alhamdulillah, setakat data yang terkini, 439 KIR telah dikenal pasti layak untuk menerima sumbangan bantuan tunai pembaikan kecil rumah sehingga RM5,000. Manakala bagi pembaikan rumah bernilai RM5,000 hingga RM15,000, hampir 10,000 buah rumah telah dikenal pasti layak menerima kemudahan baik pulih rumah oleh kerajaan. Selanjutnya, 259 orang mangsa banjir pula setakat ini dikenal pasti memerlukan kemudahan bina baharu rumah kediaman mereka oleh kerajaan.
He said this at a special parliamentary sitting to discuss matters relating to floods and long-term flood management today. Meanwhile, Tengku Zafrul said the government had identified 439 head of household who were eligible to receive cash assistance for minor home repairs of up to 5,000 ringgit due to the northeast monsoon floods in December. So far, almost 5,000 vehicles had been sent to about 1,800 registered car service centres and workshops for repairs under the Keluarga Malaysia Automotive Aid Programme. Meanwhile, funds accumulated through government-linked investment companies GLICS and government-linked company GLCS through the GLIC Disaster Response Network GDRN had reached almost 140 million ringgit.
And that concludes TVS News at 5. For more updates, don't forget to tune in to TVS Nightline Tonight with Handy Gui. Here with me, Shal Shamato, and I'll see you next time. Have a good evening.